Hey everybody, and welcome to my kitchen. It is Tuesday and you are cooking with Evey. Today we are going to be making a delicious shrimp curry. This is something, it's so simple to make. Some people are a little bit afraid of doing curries just because they think they're very complicated. This is a very simple way to do the dish. So I'm hoping you enjoy it. It also uses many of the highly anti-inflammatory spices that we have and are at our disposal to use. We have turmeric in here, we have cumin, we have ginger, coriander, cilantro. All of these are wonderful anti-inflammatory foods that will help us keep our joints lubricated, help us feeling younger, and hopefully age better, right? And that's our goal. And as I get older, I can appreciate that more and more. My family has a history of arthritis, and recently it's been kicking in. So I've been really paying attention to all those anti-inflammatory foods. So to get started, what I'm going to do is I am going to first chop up my onion. I have a yellow onion here. You could use a red onion if you'd like. But I'm going to chop this up. I'm going to dice it. It doesn't have to be a very fine dice. But as you know, I like to cut my onions in half and give it a horizontal cut and then cut down 90 degrees from that and then give it a chop. So we have a nice even dice on our onion here, but not too small. Now, you could do it a smaller dice if you like. I happen to like the chunks of the onion in my dish, so I tend to make them a little bit bigger. Just going through here. It is a very strong onion, as my eyes are watering here. This onion was sitting out on the countertop. When it's in the refrigerator, it seems that the volatile oils don't seem to bother your eyes as much. At least for me, that seems to be the case. You can let me know if it works for you. I know some people like to talk about putting a matchstick in their mouth to absorb the sulfur as it comes up, but I think we're going to stick just with this. So I'm going to just start the heat under my pan. I'm putting it on high just to start heating it up. And I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. Another good anti-inflammatory food, right? Just enough to kind of coat the bottom there. I'm going to let that heat up, and then I'm going to add in my onion when that is ready. And it's heated up a little bit. While that is cooking, I'm going to start on dicing a sweet potato. So this is a pretty big sweet potato. The more the merrier in my head, in my opinion, right? So what I did was I just chopped it in half because it is such a big sweet potato. And I am going to, let's see, how do I want to do this? I'm going to cut it in half again so that it's nice and stable on my cutting board. And I'm going to cut it in about half-inch slices. Turn it around again and cut down through that group. All right. What I should end up with, I'm going to turn this stack sideways, and I'm going to cut it down again just to keep them small and uniform. The smaller they are, the quicker they will cook. Let me add in my onions to my dish while I'm doing this. You hear a nice sizzle there, so I know that those onions are getting started. I'm going to give them a little stir just to coat them with the olive oil. And then I'm going to turn the heat down to about a medium hot. All right, I'm also going to give a little, oh, wait, before I tip down my camera, you have to see I got a little present from a fan of mine. Okay, it's my husband, but I'm glad he's a fan of mine. But I wanted to show you my on-air sign now. All right, let me just tip this down so you can see more of the countertop here. So, as my onions are browning, what I want them to do is just to get basically a little bit soft. I'm going to finish cutting my sweet potato. All right. Again, I want them to be about a quarter inch cubed, more or less. All right. Now, there is another way that you can do this, and that's to cut it into circles. So what I'm doing here is cutting it into 1/2-inch circles, and then turning it on the side so that you can see the circle. I'm going to cut down in one direction, turn it around, and cut it down in the other direction. A little bit elegant way of doing it. It does make sure that your shape is more consistent, so nice little squares. And depending on the diameter, you might want to cut through it 2 or 3 times in each direction. And this way, I'm going to just cut it twice in each direction because it's a little bit smaller. All right. There we go. Let me check on my onion. It's sauteing here. I'm going to give it another minute to get those softening. And while that's happening, I will prep my 2 cloves of garlic. So I have 1 onion, 1 sweet potato, and 2 cloves of garlic. And as you know, I like to smash my garlic. It makes it very easy for that paper to come right off. It makes for quick chopping because it's already starting to break up that clove. And we do want to chop up that garlic in a fairly good dice. With garlic, you want to cut it because it's when you cut it that it activates those anti-inflammatory and immune-boosting properties of the garlic. All right. But I'm going to add that in a little bit later because as it cooks, you don't want to cook it too long. You don't want it to burn and get bitter. All right. So I now have my sweet potatoes and my onions in my pan here. And I'm just going to give it a quick mix. I debated whether to go with this size pan or with a larger pan. I did go with the smaller, but I may end up transferring it as I go. Now, let me just show you what we've got so far. All right, here we go. All right, so this is just the onions that are just softening. I'm just waiting till those sweet potatoes get a little bit softer. And while I'm doing that, what I will do is measure out my spices. So as I said, I have a cumin, chili, curry, paprika, my ginger, and coriander. I actually I thought I had fresh ginger in the refrigerator. I don't know where it went. Somewhere from the store to home, it disappeared. I hope I don't find it in a sock drawer or something later on, but I'm going to use powdered ginger instead. The fresh ginger is such a wonderful flavor. It's a great addition to add that way. But when all else fails, you can use the powdered and ground. So let me start off with that ginger. I'm going to add in a teaspoon of ginger. All right. And I'm going to add in a teaspoon of my cumin. And I'm going to add in my coriander. Ground coriander is nothing more than the ground up seed of cilantro. FYI, right? Something to know. So I'm going to add in a teaspoon of that. Let me give my sweet potatoes a stir. They're coming along very nicely right now. Like I said, it's still at a medium temperature, and that seems to be doing just fine. So I like doing this where I put the spent spices that I've used already to the side, so I remember where I am in the process. So I just did my curry, cumin, and coriander. Now I'm sorry, my ginger, coriander, and cumin. I'm now going to add in my curry. Otherwise, I get sometimes I get a little mixed up as to where I left off. But this is a good way for my days of doing medical research to double check where I am. And I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of paprika. All right, so I did 1 teaspoon of each of those spices. Now I'm going to add in a ½ teaspoon of chili powder. And the granddaddy of all anti-inflammatories, turmeric. I'm going to add in a ½ tablespoon, which is 1½ teaspoons of turmeric. Now, if you have fresh turmeric, you could grate in, I would say, probably about a tablespoon. I'm sorry, this is 1½ yes, 1 tablespoon. Okay. 1 to 1½ tablespoons would be, because dried compared to fresh is usually 3 to 1, or 1 to 3. So 3 times more fresh than dried. All right, this is cooking up just nicely. It's a good time for me to add in my garlic. And let's see, I have all of my spices here now. I know because they're all over to the side. None of them are over here yet. So let me just show you the beautiful colors that we're going to add in. Let's see if you can see some of those. There you go. And as we know, more color means more antioxidants, more nutrients for us. Help us age better. Let's give that a stir. And I just want to toast those spices a little bit. Get them to blend before I add in any liquids. So I'm just going to let that just kind of saute a little bit longer on the stove there. And while it's doing that, I'm going to open up. I have a can of diced tomatoes. I'm going to use this whole can. Let me just grab my can opener. By the way, I do like this can opener. What it does is it actually, rather than cutting the tin, it unfolds the lip on top of the can so that when it's opened up, it's actually cut-free. Isn't that pretty cool? If you want to know more about it, just text me. I'll let you know. So eventually I'm just going to add that in. I'm also going to open up a can of coconut milk. Now, I did find out I love to do Trader Joe's coconut milk because all it is coconut and water. But there seems to be a shortage due to the supply chain issues. So I ended up having to get a different brand. It does have some thickener in it, which is the guargum. Everything is organic, which is nice, but I still like to use the organic Trader Joe's the best. I should have given this a better shake before I opened it up, so I'm going to use a spoon to just kind of go in. You'll see, if you've never used canned coconut before, that the tops, the solids, float to the top and tend to separate. So I'm just going to push these down and give it a little bit of a mix. It's a little bit tricky to do. It gets a little messy, but I think we'll be okay. Let me give my sweet potatoes a turn. Mix some of those spices up. Oh, it's looking good here. All right. So, let me give this more of a mix. And I'll show you what I have here. And you can see how thick it is now. It's still a little bit lumpy, but that's okay. I'm going to use about half a can of this. Now, if you have coconut cream is nothing more than coconut with less water added to it. So feel free just to use a little bit less and add a little bit of water if you'd like. If you really want it that thick and creamy, you could leave it as is. I've never really quite done that. I usually add some water to it if I'm going to use coconut cream. But that's all it is that it's just more of the solids in with the water. So I'm going to add in now my tomatoes. Again, I said this was diced tomatoes, no salt, organic. And, oh, you know what I forgot to add in was a little bit of salt. So let's add in, I'm going to add in about a half teaspoon of salt. Especially since I have no salt added tomatoes. And I'm going to add in another anti-inflammatory spice is ground fresh black pepper. And I added in, maybe about a third of a teaspoon of that. Let me give that a stir. It's getting a little full here. But while this is cooking, I'm going to turn this down a little bit now so it begins to just simmer a little bit. While this is cooking, I'm going to start up my other pan. So you'll see I have a larger pan here. I probably should have done these the other way around. Oops. Okay. You're always kind of trying to figure out as you're going along here. But what I do have is my shrimp prepared. So I bought some wild-caught Gulf shrimp, and I took the shells off, and I slit them down the back and removed the black digestive tract that you usually see down there. And by doing that, it also gives that nice butterfly back look to the dish when they're cooked. So I'm going to put the heat on this. All right. And again, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil just to coat the bottom of that pan. And then I'm going to lay out my shrimp and let them cook. Now, if you'd like, if you're short on time, you don't want to mess up a dish, maybe you only have one pan for this, you could lay the shrimp directly into your curry and let them cook that way. I kind of like to just give them a quick browning, a little saute beforehand, and usually I'll add the shrimp into the sauce, but I think what I'm going to do is cook up my shrimp and then add the sauce into the shrimp and then add my coconut milk, just because I don't have that much space in my pan. So I'm going to turn this down right now and grab a lid so that it doesn't dry out. All right. And I'm just going to let that simmer for a little bit. That'll actually give the seasonings too a time to meld and taste even better. In the meantime, I'm going to lay my shrimp into the pan, and I will show you, you know what, let's do this since I have my cutting board here. Let me just wipe this off a little bit. That coconut milk got over. Let's see if we can do this. So I'm heating up my oil right now, and I'm just going to lay in, well, it's not quite as hot as I wanted it to be, but I'm just going to lay them down so that on one side, and I kind of like to do it in this pattern so that I know I can fit everything in. Depending on how much shrimp and the size of the shrimp, you may or may not be able to fit it into your pan. This is 1 pound of a 21 to 25 count. So I don't know if you know, but shrimp is sized by the number per pound. So this is probably about would be considered a medium size shrimp. All right, so yes, so I have a lot of room in here. Last time I made this dish, I had no room. I actually had to do 2 pans. But I must have had more than a pound, because more or less you're going to get about the same amount of shrimp. So now that I took that off, the pan is not nice and hot, but hopefully we'll get some good cooking going. Let's see how my coconut milk is here. All right. So now you can really see how this coconut milk has mixed in. Still a little bit, it has some lumps. Now, if I was using this right away and I wasn't cooking with it, I could use a whisk and just pour it out into a bowl and just whisk it to really get it nice and smooth. But since it's going to go into a dish, it will melt all together. What's left here are just the fat solids that haven't mixed in yet. So that's fine for what we're doing right now. All right. So let's just check. We'll go over. We had the onions. We had the sweet potatoes. We have the spices that we added in. We added in some diced tomatoes, a can of diced tomatoes. I'm going to add in half a can of that coconut milk. And I can hear my shrimp starting to sizzle. I'm going to give it another minute. They don't really need to cook that long. I just want them to kind of get opaque and turn pink. And then what I'm going to do is just turn them over. So I have a great little gadget here that's great for doing that. Little Teflon tips so it doesn't scratch my pan. And I'm going to speed up the process a little bit. Now I know that these shrimp are going to cook a little bit more when I put them in the sauce. If you cook them fully through, what I would do is, assuming you have your coconut milk already in your sauce, I would just add them into the sauce, mix it up, let it cook maybe a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and then turn off the heat and let it go, because you don't want to overcook them. That's when they get tough, right? So right now, I'm just going to turn my shrimp over. I'll show you what they're looking like right now. There we go. You see, they're starting to pink up on the sides, just the way you'd see them in a shrimp cocktail, right? And, you know, I like to do it this way so I'm sure that they're they're getting evenly cooked all the way through. Oh, it smells good too. Cooking shrimp definitely has a very distinctive flavor. Or distinctive smell, I should say. All right. And we got 2 more left. I'm going to just show you how this looks. All right. So, in the interest of time, well, I'm going to let that go 1 more minute. But, again, wonderful dish, very tasty, very satisfying and hearty. A great way to serve this would be over, I would do it over a cauliflower rice, for a lower carb and additional vitamin C and fiber. You could do it over a brown rice if you do rice, quinoa. You could do it over a zucchini noodle. Or, well, we've got the sweet potatoes in, so you wouldn't want to do a sweet potato noodle. But that would be another option for you. And then what I like to do is just sprinkle a little bit of cilantro over the top. And this is the way I like to store my cilantro. Cilantro can be really finicky and wilt very quickly. So what I like to do is when I get home, I cut off the bottoms of the ends. I put them in a little bit of water, and then I'll take a plastic bag and place it over the top, like so, and put it into the refrigerator. And this way, I've had them last for sometimes almost up to a week, which is a long time for cilantro. All right, let me add in now. My shrimp is already done. I'm going to add the sauce into the shrimp so I have more room in my pan. So let me just show you. Here we go. Look at all those beautiful colors. Oh my goodness. Lovely. Now I've done that. And I'm going to add in half a can of the coconut milk. And I'm going to give that a stir. And this is where the sauce now takes on that beautiful creamy yellow color. Now, I would let this cook up. Doesn't need to cook for long. I mean, until your sweet potatoes are soft. And what I would say is don't add them together until your sweet potatoes are pretty much done, because you don't want to overcook the shrimp. All right? So let's just take a look at what we have. So, I'm going to let this cook a little bit longer, but I do want to show you just how beautiful a dish this makes by just serving it out. And if you serve it over the cauli rice or rice, it makes a beautiful presentation. So let me just move my cilantro out of the way, and I'm just going to add a little bit of the cilantro to the top, which adds flavor, and just the green against that orange yellow is beautiful. And here we have it. So that's our finished dish, our shrimp curry. Smells delicious. So I hope you get to try it. If you have any questions, please, by all means, leave a comment in the comment box. I'll get back to you. If you are looking for the recipe to print out, I have good news. I now have on my webpage, eveyschweig.com, under the recipe tab, there is a heading which is called Cooking with Evey. And under that are the recipes from the Cooking with Evey show. So very easy to find. You can also find all of these recipes, the cooking shows, on YouTube. Very easy to search by title. And I hope you get to try them. Well, we're going to have a lovely dinner tonight here. Let me know if you make this and tell me what you think. Oh, before we go, if you don't eat shrimp or you don't like shrimp, you could easily substitute in cubed chicken, either white meat or dark meat or a combination of both. All right. So it's been a pleasure sharing my kitchen with you today. I look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Take care now. Bye-bye.